What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Alex Cuesta Show. How's everybody doing out there on this Thursday, February 29th of 2024 for episode number 113? David, I decided this week I'm going to be nice to you for some reason.
Well, that's silly. Now, why would you ever do that?
I don't know. I just feel like being nice to you. You know, I'm happy you're here.
Don't ruin the bit.
I had to, just every once in a while. I'm actually not happy you're here. I don't understand why you keep coming back.
Please, thank you.
Anyway, before we get into all the fun stuff, give us a like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5-star Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Go find us on the socials at the Alex Cuesta Show. Quick before we get into this week's show, last week we had Danny and Giuliano D on the show. We had a great time talking to them. They're just concerned Americans that conservatives, and it was a fun show. Go give it a listen. And before we jump into meat and potatoes of this show, because this show is going to be very much about federal, about Trump, about the election. Anyone listening here, more than likely you're a conservative. You're on the right. Federal matters, and you could do a lot for helping Donald Trump by talking about him, promoting him, going to vote for him. But also, please go get on the ground. Go join your local committees. Go join your county committees and things like that. Get on the ground, be the ground troops as well. Because without the ground troops, you can have all the rah-rah you want, but Trump might win, maybe a congressman, but you'll lose at state level. You'll lose at local level. And then it's not going to be fun for you. So go out there, join your committee. But I want to jump into this show right away. This week, I'm excited to have this guest. He is Paul Ingrassia. He's a writer for the Gateway Pundit, legal scholar, and he has a Substack who is frequently retruthed by President Trump. He serves as the director of communications for the NCLU and previously worked for President Trump's National Economic Council. Paul, what's going on?
Thank you so much for having me on tonight, guys. It's a pleasure.
Anytime.
We're absolutely excited. So I want to jump right in. We're going to be very Trump heavy tonight because you are working extremely hard to get Donald Trump elected. And one of the things you're doing, you are fighting up a tidal wave because you're in New York fighting that battle. It is primary season right now. What has primary season been like from your perspective, and how important has it been for Trump to keep racking up these victories against, the ever so threatening Nikki Haley?
Well, my perspective on this has evolved a little bit because, I've been traveling around with President Trump. I've been doing a lot of work first and foremost in New York and in New Jersey in terms of mobilizing the grassroots, getting people actively involved, getting President Trump, in the case of New Jersey, on the ballot, and registering voters. We need to register voters in both states. There are many unregistered voters, or, they may have been former Democrats or independents who are now, in the bandwagon for President Trump who need to be registered Republican. So those sorts of efforts are being done in both states. And as a result, you're seeing a lot of enthusiasm in both states on the ground. President Trump has entertained the idea, and I think there's quite a bit of legitimacy to this, of doing a rally in either the South Bronx or Madison Square Garden, or even both, depending on how quickly he's able to wrap up sort of Super Tuesday and the rest of the primary process. And of course, he'll be doing events all throughout the summer in New Jersey, where his Bedminster estate is. And that's basically his seasonal headquarters for the campaign during the summer months. So all that being said, we saw this result this past week in Michigan.
Yep.
And President Trump won the state by, he obviously defeated Bird Brain, as we call her, Nikki
41
Haley.
points, right? I think it was a ridiculous number
by
again.
41 points, right? And he defeated Biden in total number by well over 100,000. I think it was close to 200,000. It was approaching that number, and 100,000 Democrats in the Democratic primary of that state, a little over that, voted for unaffiliated. Then it voted basically as a protest vote against Joe Biden. So it was great to see that, because if you add all of those unaffiliated voters plus the Joe Biden thing, I think that's not even enough to overcome Donald Trump's lead in a state like Michigan. And as we know, Michigan is a key swing state for this election. If he wins Michigan, it's pretty much guaranteed that he wins the race. And, obviously Michigan was a focal point for the fraud in 2020 as a result of lingering, concerns regarding election fraud and corruption. And obviously that remains an issue. But Michigan obviously is a key state, and obviously Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona as well. But it was a great thing to see. And as we know, a lot of those voters who voted for Nikki Haley are left-leaning independents or Democrats who have infiltrated an open primary process in order to sort of give her even more of an advantage than she would. Not that she, had any chance at all. I mean, as you said, he won by 40 plus points. It's probably in reality even more than that, but he did really well. And this is great momentum to carry him into Super Tuesday and hopefully knock her out for good. I was hoping she'd be following DeSantis's lead and drop out prior to like South Carolina, but obviously she wants to remain in this race, and it's unfortunate, but we'll hopefully see her out of the race in due time.
Yeah. Now, Haley obviously wants to be a thorn in Trump's side during this whole primary, and it is annoying, but not to overlook her, but how much of this primary for Trump has been really weathering the storm of all the attacks from the left, and whether it's a leftist judge basically telling him he has to pay so much money, or someone trying to get him off a ballot in a state. How much of it is really just weathering that storm to get to the general election where you're going to have more attacks, but at least it's on just the 1v1?
They call it election interference for a reason. It's a weaponized system of justice targeting him, politically prosecuting and persecuting him, because obviously Joe Biden is not popular. The 81 million votes that he supposedly got in 2020 aren't showing up this time around.
He definitely got
popular ever.
Yeah, the most popular candidate ever happens to also have the lowest. I mean, I'm not a huge poll person, but he also has the lowest approval ratings of all time.
And maybe the slowest pulse of any other president of all time.
The slowest pulse, if he even has one. I mean,
I don't know.
These videos, and he
does that
walks around like a robot.
He does that walk run like every
little
step, a little shimmy. He tries to make himself look athletic.
I know. It's incredible. I mean, they call it elder abuse. It's just a disgrace. We've become a laughingstock on the world stage. Think how China looks at us, or North Korea, or Iran, or even Europe in many respects. We're such in a bad state of affairs right now, and it's such a stark contrast from Donald Trump, who has all the stamina on his side. He looks better than ever. At 77, he'll be 78 in a couple of months. He's strong, vibrant, and really the key word, strong.
Yeah, but Paul, don't you
Biden
know
is like the very opposite.
He called his wife Mercedes. He wasn't talking to Mercedes Schlapp in the front row. He called Melania apparently because
I know
these leftists are brain dead.
He's losing. That's their argument, that Trump is losing it because he called Mercedes Schlapp in the front row, and therefore they think he's going senile. And the thing he mentions during the speeches is he says Obama is the real president controlling things, and they're like, oh, the fake news says, Donald Trump doesn't know who's president. He still thinks Barack Obama is the president of the United States. So they obviously. I actually think they genuinely, it's not a matter of just them lying. I think they're just so dumb, the media, and they genuinely they take things so literally that they believe it themselves, and that's why they spread it, because they're so stupid. But to your point, he's doing really, really well across the board. Biden's doing horrible. Haley's just a spoiler candidate, and the real opposition is, of course, the justice system, Letitia James, although all these cases are falling apart.
Yep.
Yes.
We see yesterday with the presidential immunity, we could talk maybe a little bit more about this in just a bit, but the Supreme Court will be taking up this case. There won't be a trial as a result of this, regardless of how the court decides, until after Election Day, which is a promising sign. Obviously, we know the whole disaster that was the whole Fani Willis thing with the affair with Nathan Wade in Georgia. the corruption that was exposed there, and
Yeah,
there's
but Paul,
layer
the
after
thing
layer
is,
of that.
we know Fannie Willis is now going to run for senator and have huge support, right? Because whenever leftists do shit like this, they always fail.
Right. That
Like
is
they
true.
always sit there. So like she's gonna
That is
be the
true.
next. What was the chick she's the governor of Georgia still? The one that beat Kemp 3 times. The chick that keeps on
Stacey
claiming that
Abrams
she won.
or the
Stacey
other.
Oh
Abrams.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
And she's
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah,
the next
yeah.
Stacey Abrams. They're gonna
Right.
prop her up. And
Exactly.
she's
Exactly.
gonna fail up. That's what they do.
yeah. She was the president of Earth in Star Trek.
She was the president of Earth and Star
Yeah.
Trek. Yes.
Honestly, this whole thing that's going on in Georgia, I blame Brian Kemp because he could send his attorney general in there and put this to an end immediately. Like this isn't. I don't even blame Fannie Willis so much. I blame Kemp that all of this is happening under his watch. And obviously, he's a rhino, and obviously, he hates Donald Trump, and it is because of that because of his incompetence and his hatred for Trump and his inability to look into the voter fraud that was very much in play in the state of Georgia in 2020. We know the whole infamous main breakage story that caused everything to halt at at a certain point in time at like 11 o'clock, and of course all the ballot dumps and ballot late night things that went on. Everything that went on in that state is well documented, perhaps better than any other state, save maybe Maricopa County in Arizona.
Yep.
But and all of that is of course Ryan Kemp's responsibility, and the reason why is the guy's a Davos guy. He's a globalist. He hates Donald Trump, and he's very much allowing Fannie Willis to go about. Although this whole thing won't play out because of how corrupt it is. Like she's going to be disbarred as a result of this.
Crazy.
But you see these cases falling apart one by one by one. The real remaining one is the New York State one. But I can't see how a $5 million judgment against his businesses stands unless you're going to destroy the entire economy of New York State and impose communism for good and send all businesses.
I mean, it's New York City, Paul. Are you actually
I don't see them
surprised?
not doing that.
Here's the thing. I actually do see it going through because look at what's going on in New York City already. Like the state is red.
That's true.
Right? Middle of America, but Albany, Buffalo, Syracuse, they're all deep blue, and I wouldn't be surprised.
And they want to destroy the state. They want to destroy it's by design, and it's
Marxism.
It really is communism that they've imposed on this state. But listen, if they want to do that, if they want to go that route, they will destroy New York, and they are destroying New York. Between the migrant crisis, between what they're doing against Donald Trump here, and everything, I just if they appeal this. It may not. I mean, the Court of Appeals. This is, of course, the state court decision. So it's going through a different process. He's dealing with more hostile judges here.
Absolutely.
In the Court of Appeals, he might get a better, more favorable settlement. So instead of having to pay $500 million, he might have to pay, I don't know, $200 million. But I don't think he should even go for that. I think they should appeal this case as well to the Supreme Court.
There's a value to just saying no. He should just say no.
I know.
I'm not going to do this. And
absolutely.
Again, come book me. Let me sell another $1 billion in NFTs on a mugshot. Come on, come make me more popular again, because challenge them to do it. Because like you said, he creates so much jobs. He has so much work. And between basically, people forget that when Atlantic City was failing, it was Donald Trump who bought up basically every resort. And then once they got to it, sold them all back.
That's true.
And, just kept his name.
The guy's a money-making machine. Wherever he goes, he creates money, creates jobs, creates opportunity. And that's exactly right. And that's why the entire country right now needs a businessman, needs Donald Trump in charge. Because
quick question for you, Paul.
Gone to hell.
With the immunity case, I mean, the difficult part is, where is John Roberts going to go? And is he going to influence some of them, like a Kavanaugh or even an Amy Coney Barrett, who we have seen sometimes not go the way that conservatives have wanted them to go? Do you see them potentially making this an issue for Donald Trump? And, Roberts is the one I always swing to, because for me, Roberts is like, whatever, my legacy is going to make me look good, I'll vote that way. It's like, so how do you see, I personally see this kind of as an open and shut, and, but how do you see that going?
No, it's a great question. I mean, everyone was just kind of jumping up and down, celebrating, I think, too quickly the fact that they took this case, because they put a stay on all the other cases, the Judge Chutkan cases with the 1512 things and the J6 cases until this case would be determined. So, I think the ideal scenario would be they postpone this case until next year's docket after the election. I mean, as it stands, if there is a trial, if they decide that there is no immunity or there's limited immunity, meaning the Supreme Court, we'll talk about that in just one second. But let's say they say there's only limited immunity, it doesn't apply to Trump. There will be a trial. That trial will still begin like a few weeks before the election. So that will still interfere with the process. So 100%. I don't think it's as big a celebration as kind of conservatives are making it out to be. And that doesn't even get to the merits of the case, as you alluded to. How is this vote going to stand? I mean, we know we have safe votes with Alito and Thomas, guys who maybe Gorsuch maybe
more
Kavanaugh.
Than likely on this one. I think he'll be okay. Gorsuch.
Right. But it depends. But it depends the side. But even if you say, all right, there's immunity here, to what extent are we allowing immunity? How are these guys real strong proponents of a legal theory called unitary executive theory? Mm-hmm. Like how much power goes to the president? And to what extent does that power apply to him or attach to him in terms of legal protections and the privileges once he leaves office? Mm-hmm. So those questions, we are undecided, and we don't know how the court will rule. Typically, they like to go for a more limited and narrow ruling just to get their votes on board.
Yep.
And the two ones, maybe two. Roberts and Coney Barrett tend to be lightweight. They tend to be soft. They tend to be, they won't.
I put Kavanaugh there too.
Political issues. I honestly put all three of Trump's Supreme Court picks in that category.
Agreed. And
sometimes even, listen, I think Alito and Thomas are overall very good, but those are the only two that you really could count on. The other four Republican appointed justices, and obviously Roberts is a hack. He's basically a Bush appointed, establishment guy who doesn't want to get his hands dirty in anything. That's true. He's always siding with the other side, and the same with Amy Coney Barrett, who's too much. They plucked her right out of the classroom at Notre Dame where she was teaching. She was on the Court of Appeals in DC for like a year only. She doesn't have that much experience. She's too much in the classroom mode still. Yep. She doesn't understand that we're in war mode in terms of our politics. She doesn't understand that at all. I don't think she was a good pick to replace Ginsburg, nor really was Kavanaugh, or Gorsuch, but let's hope and pray that the news that they are taking up the decision is a sign that they will. Listen, the oral arguments for the previous case, the Colorado decision, seemed very good, very promising. So they laid a good foundation there.
Being pretty good on that
with
as well.
all of them, all of them.
Yeah.
So there's some reason to be optimistic, but in terms of the real expansive immunity, sort of that all of us on our side would hope to attach to the president. I think he should get complete immunity here. I don't know if they'll all be sold to that argument, but we'll see.
So if this immunity situation goes awry, do we have an arsenal of conservative AGs ready to apply this to Biden as well for the many crimes that he's done? Because I just don't see the political will of a lot of Ken Paxton's great on a lot of things, but where's Ken Paxton charging Joe Biden or, at least charging Hunter for some real stuff?
Exactly. We should have DAs. Crimes. We should, it should be coordinated by the RNC ideally. Mm-hmm. We're getting a new overhaul with Lara Trump being co-chair, this guy Whatley from North Carolina, who was fairly good on the election integrity and Trump issues post 2020, and Chris LaCivita, his as CEO now of the RNC. So those three being in charge, it's way too late. It's way too late, but at least we're getting, hopefully all three will be
if
in
Scott
charge.
Presler isn't involved, then I want them all torn down to bits because Scott Presler is the country registering people and alienating him. That man needs to be funded fully.
Right. Exactly. And they also need to fund lawfare groups. Yes. It might be too late to fund or to finance sort of the right-wing equivalent of what George Soros is doing with all these DAs.
Mm-hmm.
But, we need to get the ball rolling on that. At least put lawyers strategically deployed in key battleground cities like Philadelphia, like Atlanta, like Maricopa County, and Arizona, Detroit, these key battleground states with these key cities to monitor the election process and oversee it. And that has to be a top-down thing, and that should ideally come from the RNC. Now, as far as DAs, you should have Republican DAs in West Virginia and Kentucky and Texas politically prosecuting Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton or the Obamas or Pelosi or whoever it may be on similar grounds. And, a state like Florida would be ripe for that with a governor like, we hate DeSantis now, but like, in an ideal world, like he would be goading on district attorneys and appointing like real killer DAs to do that. I don't know if we're going to see that happen between now and election day, at least. Yeah. But in terms of attorney generals, we have some good ones lined up, I think, AG type candidates. I'm just going to call it for the next administration. So, you see people like, Mike Davis and Jeff Clark. Yep. And, you mentioned Ken Paxton, who I saw at CPAC. I actually saw all three of them at CPAC this past week. And they're all great candidates, I think, for that post. Really, as I think your instinct is right that, God willing, he's back in there. There's no fraud, or at least, he's able to get back in there. The Justice Department, the FBI are like the first order sort of line of attack, so to speak. We need to reform those and get those on our side. And that's why it's so important. Yes.
They all need to go. So in terms of, I just want to switch quick gears. Mitch McConnell's gone and, he's stepping down. Who ideally would we want to see step in? If you're asking me, I would love to see Mike Lee or Rand Paul step up, but they're not going to do that because they're actual conservatives, and we know actual conservatives don't lead in Congress right now. So who would you like to see, and who do you predict that they're going to put up?
All right. So I saw today that like Cornyn from Texas wants a job. No way.
Hell no.
I think from what I've seen, I haven't delved too deeply. Obviously, McConnell leaving is a good thing. I wish he would leave like next week, not wait until, what would he say, like November or 10 months from now?
Yeah, they can maybe force him out.
I mean, I saw a lot of people saying Rick Scott being a potential majority leader. I mean, what do you guys think? I'm actually interested in I'd like to hear what you guys have to say.
We'd be getting Johnson and Rick Scott. I think we'd be getting a very similar guy where, for the most part, we're going to be cool with what he does. But then there's going to be big moments where we're going to be like, why? That's where I think we're going to get Rick Scott.
Right. Yeah. David? Yeah. I mean, I think Scott would be better than Mike Johnson so far has been as House leader. So, I think that's a step in the right direction. And he's always been fairly good with Trump. I mean, listen, I'm not a fan of like too many people in the Senate. I mean, there are only like 4 or 5 names that I really like and that I do like, and I don't think any of them have any chance of being majority leader. But the fact that McConnell is getting pushed out is a good sign, as long as he's not replaced by someone who's worse, like Cornyn.
Well, I mean, John Thune is someone that they keep on throwing around because he's the right-hand man, and John Thune would quite literally be the same thing. It wouldn't be good at all.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. There are a lot of hacks in the U.S. Senate. A lot of political hacks, that's for sure.
I would say the only thing about him being the same thing is that you know what you're getting. Like, I would rather getting the same thing than getting something worse.
But you get the same thing, but they're younger and
that is
less senile, so that's actually worse. Right?
It's fair.
You're not watching them have strokes on screen like
just a blue screen over the last
few years.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty wild. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I think, like you said, Rick Scott will be a step in the right direction. How much can we count on him? Will he go full rhino? Which we've seen that too before, right? We saw that with Paul Ryan in the House. Everyone thought he was going to be a strong conservative, and boom, he gets in that spot. rhino. John Boehner was always a rhino, so I don't know why he got there. But it's like, but we've seen this before, so I'm hoping that if someone
Listen,
gets in, he doesn't shake a lot of hands, because that's what happens. They shake a lot of hands, they make a lot of deals, and Republicans are the only ones that stick to their deals. Leftists shake hands and then they tell the Republicans to kick rocks. So I don't that's my hope that that doesn't happen.
they basically are like chickens without heads, without the executive leading them, the president, Donald Trump. So unless they have him in charge, they really don't know what to do with themselves, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
I don't have that, as you could probably tell, I don't put that much faith in Congress. I think in terms of the three branches of government, it's the least important now, especially with the Trump administration. I would say the executive branch, number one, and with this very strong president in charge of the executive branch who has full control over the administrative state, followed by the judiciary, followed by the legislative branch, because Congress is basically hopeless.
And the thing with Congress is you just have to hope that we don't get what we got with Trump's first term, where he had a majority and they just decided that the rhinos were going to stonewall everything he wanted to do. And
exactly. And I mean, so many of those guys have since retired, between Boehner, Ryan, McCarthy. Now we're seeing with McConnell. So, they're slowly kind of falling one by one, way too slow. And there are way too many rhinos still there. I was actually just in Congress yesterday helping advocate for January 6th related legislation that would allow for a change of venue out of D.C. This would help Trump too. To a jury trial where they're not selecting from D.C.-based jurors. But, as part of that, I was also actually meeting with these Polish diplomats, and they were asking me about, January 6th, about the rhinos, the Republicans in name only versus the MAGA faction of the Republican Party. They're very, very fascinated by our system. And they're saying, well, wouldn't it, they said, how many of the Republicans are rhinos versus how many are truly MAGA? So I said, being very generous to the rhinos, I would say probably at least 50% of the Republicans, at least 50% are rhinos.
Low. I think that's low for Congress.
I know. I think that's low too. It's probably 80 to 90%, but I just, to make it easy for them, I said 50%. So they're like, well, why don't you just, a good idea would be try to persuade them to come over on our side. I said, buddy, that's not how it works in America. Basically, people are evil, and they're not. They hate Trump and they want to see this whole movement destroyed. So it's not. It's very nice that you think we could kind of like to do diplomacy and compromise and negotiation with these people, but they really need to be beaten into shape, in order to get them.
Came from some kind of fantasy land, and they just walked into Sin City and asked, "Hey, how about you just persuade the people in this city to not
stop
do these
Sodom and Gomorrah
things.
from doing Sodom and Gomorrah things, like without destroying them." So
I know. Well, listen, he was from Poland, so he's a little protected, a little safeguarded from the rest of the world.
Absolutely. So before I let you go, I have to put you on the spot. Who do you want to see as Trump's VP pick?
So I've been asked this question millions and millions of times. Ideally, and I've written about this, and you guys might know, I've been always saying Tucker Carlson for VP. I know Tucker personally. I think in the past, I've been saying, he's someone who is an outsider. He would be probably loyal. He wouldn't bring in a bunch of hacks, like if he were to pick like a senator or a representative. He's a straight white male, which, in our age of identity politics, he's evil. Sort of against that. And he's younger. So, and he may be able to provide some liability and some protection for Trump. If they ever tried to pull another witch hunt against him, they'd be afraid of him. I don't see that happening. I know Tucker personally. He seemed fairly open to the idea. But Melania Trump reportedly wanted him months ago. I don't see it happening. I think he's going to play it safe, probably choose someone like a Ben Carson type.
I like Ben.
I don't see him picking Vivek. Kristi Noem is someone they also float around. But I think probably at this point, Ben Carson is probably the front runner. if I had to guess. I mean, is he ideal? Is he perfect? No. But the thing is, he wouldn't be trying to run for president. In other words, like, he's not someone who would see himself as competing against Trump, because he's not a guy who would run again for president in 2028. So as a result, Trump kind of opens up the field, so to speak, to the people like, the Ted Cruz's, Marco Rubio's, whoever might want to run again in 28. And then he could kind of use them as leverage to get the legislation he wants to get through. Listen, Carson's loyal. He's a good man. He's loyal. So you offer the protection to Trump to prevent them, to really scare the deep state from prosecuting him, or worse. I don't think so. No. I don't think they really see him as a threat. So on that part, that concerns me. But the rest of the things, I don't think. I think he could go much worse than Carson. So
certainly,
that's my take on the VP race so far.
Yeah, when it comes to a VP pick, I mean, generally with just the position the way it is, I'm perfectly fine with just someone who is like an actual plank of wood, which is kind of what I see Ben Carson as. It's not a bad thing. It's just, he doesn't exactly have the personality, but he's there and he just does what he needs to do, and it's whatever. Like, you don't need someone that's bombastic as a VP, or someone that's really going to catch someone's eye.
Right.
Yeah,
that's true.
And, just for the love of God, the only thing I want you to get through to Trump, if you can, in terms of VP, do not pick RFK or Tulsi. They need to not be on the radar. RFK is a leftist and a psycho, and Tulsi is still a leftist. Don't let her. I don't know. I've never met her. Maybe you.
I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%, and I've been saying that as well. Well, some people who are close to me have been pushing for not so much RFK, but Tulsi. Like Roger Stone, who I love Roger Stone, but he's been pushing for Tulsi, and I've been telling him, no, not Tulsi.
Listen, the only thing you got with Tulsi,
honestly, I don't think Trump would pick on him. I don't think there's any concern. I don't see Trump. First, he would never pick RFK.
Thank you.
And as far as Tulsi, I don't see that happening. That's like a real long shot.
Awesome. All right, so Paul, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was lots of fun.
Thank you, guys. Hopefully I'll be able to do a little longer next time, but thank you so much. It was an honor being on here, and I enjoyed the conversation tonight. You guys keep up the great work.
Once again, he's Paul Ingrassia. He is someone who is in Trump's inner circle, and he has an awesome Substack. Definitely go visit it. Just go search paulingrassia.substack.com. He writes some awesome articles, a lot of them about Trump, a lot of them that Trump does retruth. So he's someone that if you want to get the pulse on what Donald Trump's thinking, what he's trying to do in terms of election stuff, go follow Paul. He's a great resource, and he's also a good follower over on Twix. So once again, thanks for listening to the show. If you like, Dave, don't laugh. Like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Find us on the socials at The Alex Cuesta Show. We'll be back next week with another great show. So long, everybody.